Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, and I want to welcome you to the fourth of our Distinguished Series events of this year. Especially excited tonight because just over a year ago, I was with Justin Ford. Where's Justin? All right, there's Justin, who was director of VetPAC at the time. And he told me about a candidate he was supporting named Tulsi Gabbard. And he said, she's doing really well. She's come back a whole lot from being down in the polls. But what's really interesting is she treats the people she represents and that she talks to like they're peers, not like she's a much bigger deal than they are, and which he'd often encountered in politics. I don't usually introduce the speakers here by just telling them about their bio. I like to talk about a few really cool things they've done, how they've stood out from the pack. With Tulsi Gabbard, everything she's done in her life, it seems, is another trail that she's blazed. She's born in Samoa. She's the first American Samoan rep. My girlfriend told me not to say what year that was but she's younger than me, which also makes me feel more and more inadequate. In 2002, she became the state representative for Hawaii's 42nd district. At the time, she was the youngest Hawaiian legislator ever, and the youngest woman in state office in the entire country. In 2003, she enlisted the National Guard. In 2004, she volunteered to deploy to Iraq for 12 months, giving up her seat to do so, or not running for re-election in order to do so. And from what I understand, I haven't taught anybody else who has actually done that. In 2004, she went to Iraq on a 12-month deployment. In 2007, after she returned, she went to OCS and was the first female honor graduate in the history of that OCS, which was, I'm going to finish up real quick, 50 years old. She deployed again as a platoon commander in 2009. 2010 became a city councilman in Honolulu, and she ran for Congress in 2012 after being 45 points behind the polls. She came back and won the primary by 20%. She is currently not only the congresswoman from Hawaii, but the vice chair of the DNC and the captain of the National Guard. Please help me welcome Tulsi Gabbard.
Thank you, Seth, for your kind and generous introduction. Thank you, Darren, for keeping this whole show on track. Sorry I turned your whole thing upside down a little bit, but we just had a very rewarding moment on the House floor. We had finished up votes. There's an education bill that we're going to be voting on, reauthorizing elementary and secondary education tomorrow. And there was a very important provision there for us in Hawaii, dealing with Native education for Native Hawaiians, Alaska Natives, and Native Americans. The odds were absolutely against us. They were not only not in our favor, they were against us. And we ended up passing the amendment with over 250 yes votes. So we got something done today, folks. I feel a little less frustrated. It's so great to be here, and Seth talked a little bit about my path coming here, and just want to share a little bit about those experiences, because as I know there are those of you here today who have an interest in running for office, or have an interest or passion or commitment to somehow finding a way to continue your service to our country, whether it's at the county level, the state level, or serving our country and impacting national policy. I can't think of a better group of people more qualified to be able to do so than those who have worn the uniform, those who have already made that commitment to put your life on the line to serve our country. When I talk to folks and I hear them, they express their frustration with members of Congress, and they say they've forgotten about us. They've forgotten who they serve. And when I think about the contributions that veterans make every day and have the potential to make in these positions of leadership, it's very inspiring and motivating, because this is a group of people who don't have to think about it. They don't have to wake up. You don't have to wake up every day thinking, well, I got to remember who I'm serving today. I got to remember my purpose, because it's part of who you are. And that's something that's amazing and that exists in very, very few people in our country and can't be understated. People who have not worn the uniform don't understand what that means. people tell me all the time, say, oh, Tulsi, I don't know how you went through basic training, and I don't know how you did this and how you did that. I was like, well, it's kind of not that big of a deal. And in a very twisted way, I had fun. And they can't relate. They can't relate to what that entire experience feels like, the camaraderie that's built between members of our armed services, and that bond that exists between, that crosses generations. When I have the chance to meet with World War II veterans, I was in Hawaii over the 4th of July week on the island of Maui, helping deliver Meals on Wheels. And I went to the house of a family that welcomed me so kindly. 91-year-old husband. He takes care of he's the caretaker for his wife who is blind. They live at home. And he was a prisoner of war in the Philippines during World War II for 3 years. He was missing in action for 3 years. No one knew where he was. And he's sitting there on his couch in Maui telling me all these stories and by name remembering the people who helped him so many years ago when he was a 20-year-old in the Philippines running from the Japanese, as he says. And it's that instant bond that connects all of us that is so amazing and so incredible, and something that I hold very near and dear to my heart because it's unique. And to me, that bond is a symbol of that commitment to service and that commitment to servant leadership, and is recognized across the board. When Seth mentioned how Justin told him of my being down in the polls a little bit and then she came back, well, I started out not even achieving underdog status. When I decided to run for Congress, 9.5 out of 10 people told me, Tulsi, we like you, you're nice, you've got a good resume, but you're too young, you're too inexperienced, you're not qualified for this job in Congress, and it's just not your time. Just kind of sit around and wait and pay your dues, and eventually someday in the future you might get there, 10, 20, 30 years down the line. I think a great attribute of the next generation of leadership, a lot of you who I see here today, is that we're very impatient and we don't take no for an answer very well, and I did not. I knew that there was a path to victory in the race that I ran. And even though I started out at 6 and 7% in the polls, my opponent at 91%, I knew that there was an opportunity to share my vision and my commitment and my passion for service with the people of Hawaii. And that's what I stayed focused on. And so we ended up turning 5 months out from Election Day. I was 45% behind still in the polls. But within that next 5 months, with the help of so many tremendous people, we ended up winning by a 20% margin. It was a pretty big turnaround to go 65 points within 5 months. But it's just a signal of what can happen when you treat people with respect, when you listen, and when you're coming from a very sincere and authentic place of realizing that I'm applying for a job from every single one of you. Being a member of Congress is not some lofty position where one becomes crowned and you're secluded off into a place where you're untouchable. You're in a position uniquely to be a voice for and a champion for so many people. And if you remember that every 2 years you're applying for a job, the most rigorous job interview process ever, seeing hundreds and thousands of people and asking them for the privilege and honor of working for them. It's an amazing thing, and it's what keeps me going here on a daily basis. There are, throughout my experience during that campaign, I got a lot of questions from other candidates, as I do still now, veterans who are running for office, who don't necessarily always feel comfortable talking about their service, or don't know how to share their pride in having worn the uniform without looking like you're trying to exploit it, or you're trying to put yourself up in a place where you're better than other people. And this is something that I didn't really think about very much through my campaign, because I found myself in a position, whether I was in a debate or in a one-on-one conversation with someone, that my military service in large part formed who I am. And that experience both as a lower enlisted soldier during my first deployment, during my second deployment as a platoon leader, having gone through OCS and having gone through great leaders who I learned that I didn't want to be like them so much. All of these experiences were very applicable to the challenges that I was talking about wanting to take on and the challenges that we're facing now. And being able to draw back on that experience is a very natural thing. It is not something that anyone who's interested in serving in public office should shy away from, because it is a unique experience that makes you uniquely qualified to be able to serve in these positions. And it's who we are. That's the bottom line. It's who we are. I had the opportunity to go to the Medal of Honor ceremony at the Pentagon for Clint Romeshay, and it was so moving. It was a surreal moment for me because I'm captain in the Army National Guard, and I went to my seat and had the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff on my left and Secretary of the Army on my right. And just like, okay, I'm here. This is real. But to hear General Odierno talk about Clint Romeshay and to hear him talk himself and to hear about what he went through and how in his own mind he was just doing his job. What he had said was, I think there were 50 of them in their platoon who were there at this outlying fob, and there were 350 Taliban coming. I don't know the exact number, but he said, yeah, not really a fair fight for the Taliban, was it? That's the spirit. I mean, that's the spirit that exists not only when you're downrange, but when you're here. Because sometimes the challenges that we have to go through here, this commitment to continuing the mission, to continuing to serve, the challenges are greater here sometimes because of the different dynamics that you're dealing with, and you've got to dig deeper to understand why you're doing what you're doing. But in the end of Clint Romeshay's speech, I was very moved because as he stood there in his suit with his family watching and his battle buddies there, people from his platoon there watching, and he said, no matter what uniform I wear, whether I'm wearing ACUs or wearing civilian clothes, I am and will always be a soldier for life. And me being the dork that I am, I was the only one in the whole auditorium who sat there and said, hooah. Totally spontaneous. I was really, really moved by what he said though, because that's exactly right, and that's exactly where there's such great opportunity, no matter what branch of service that you have served in or continue to serve in. This doesn't end when you lay down the uniform. It doesn't end. You have to be more creative on where you find opportunities to serve. You have to be more creative on saying, how do I continue my mission? Because we as a country need you to step up in every sector, whether it's business or the nonprofit world or in politics, whether elected or being in a position to influence policy. In every single sector of our community, we need more veterans, we need more people who understand what that means to dedicate your life to service, to step up to the plate, because you will be able to build bridges and be successful and get those wins for our country that others wouldn't be able to do because they don't have what each of you have. The bonds and the partnerships that I've built up with new friends of mine in Congress, some of them have come from just because we have that common bond of service, where we have both worn the uniform. And it creates that instant partnership and friendship to say, hey, we know we can work together. We know how to get things done. We know how to place the mission first. And we know who we serve, most importantly. So for those of you who are looking at running for office, let me know. I'm happy to help. Those of you who are looking at seeing how you can continue your mission, I highly encourage you to do so, whatever path that takes you down, because your country needs you now more than ever. Thank you so much for allowing me to talk to you tonight. Aloha. Thank you.